Who was the most careful that you remember? Is there anyone who stands out in your mind as absolutely protected you, and you just felt completely safe working with them all the time?
You know what? I mean, there are a lot of guys. I mean, Brett was one of those guys. To me, I mean, I think I'll probably go with Taker. You know what I mean? But I mean, for me, honestly, all my big guys. You know what I mean? I mean, all the guys, because, I mean, I can go like to Vader, to Sid, to Kevin, to Taker, all those, a lot of those big guys were always, because I was smaller than them, they were always really good with me. I mean, and that's why, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I always like to have such good, good matches with those guys, because they were all just so strong. You know what I mean? And you could just, they could just toss me all over the place. And that's the only thing you'd say, like, hey, just, whatever.
Andre always seemed quite delicate.
Yeah,
too.
well, I mean, I know you.
Were you guys in a battle royal together, or anything like that?
He was on our team. We were in a 6-man tag together, but he was on our side. So I never.
You never had to get beaten by Andre.
No. But again, and that was the thing. Like I said, I always, all of the big guys were always good with me, and I think it's because, again, I think strangely enough, I think big guys every now and then, you either get guys that are really careful, or you get guys that are just completely reckless. You know what I mean? And I was fortunate enough to for the most part, get guys that were pretty careful.
I've never heard anyone talk about this person, and I found her to be so special in terms of what she did with the WWE, and I thought she was awesome with you, was Sensational Sherry.
Yep.
I just thought she was amazing, and I think I said recently in a blog, I said she may have taken harder bumps than half the wrestlers in the business.
There isn't anything that woman wouldn't have done. I mean, she was so gung-ho. I mean, and she was, she and I knew each other from AWA days, and when they hooked us up together in the WWE, I mean, she was so extremely supportive. She was, again, I was coming off of a tag team. I wasn't over. She was the one, she was the one with credibility. She was the one that had been walking with DiBiase and Macho Man. She was the one helping me get over. And even though she knew that was the case, she still never said anything other than, how can I enhance you? How can I help you get over? And I'm telling you, when there were, because I ran into some folks that didn't want to help me out, and boy, that bothered her. And I mean, all she'd have to do, she'd throw him out here, and I'd throw him out of the ring, and she would just beat them mercilessly.
I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, they were crawling to get back into the ring with me. But she was always, and she was a sweetheart of a lady. Both, I mean, again, for lack of better terms, in real life, she was wonderful.
And she enhanced you and Macho Man so much.
Oh yeah.
One of the things I thought that was so fascinating about Macho Man was that he had literally the two polar opposite managers.
Yeah.
I mean, Elizabeth and Sherry are absolutely, and he somehow totally worked with both of them in a way that made perfect sense.
Yeah, well, but it's big. Then Randy he's just good. I mean, he knew what he was doing. There was no, I guess, I mean, and I don't have any regrets. I mean, I got to work with him, but I mean, I shudder to think what I could have done with him when I had a little bit more knowledge than I had.
It was pretty early when you worked with him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I mean, heck, and it still went great. I mean, but I mean, I would like to have been able to do it when I really got a better handle on who I was and what I was doing.
Yeah, and you and Steamboat could have done some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the thing. I mean, that and again, I guess that's the thing. A lot of people, they always, like, gosh, you have any, people in your wish list? And for the most part, I really don't. But if I did, all of mine are not. I mean, they're not anybody of today or even yesterday. They're of,
right there, like basically
of the '80s.
Right.
I mean, those are my guys. I mean, I'd rather been in there with like Steamboat, Harley Race. You know what I mean? Folks like that.
And it's funny, and these are guys who you had crossover with, but just not, you were brand new.
Yeah, no, I was 19, and they were all well into their primes and into their careers.
But I'm happy we touched on Macho Man for a second, because I think Macho Man is someone I put out there, and I said this when he passed away, and I felt bad that I was only getting to say it when he passed away, but I said, for the fact of you add up all the things that he was capable of, and you can make a case that there was no one better than Macho Man. Yeah. He really, as far as in-ring what he did, and, of course he had moments in his career that weren't as glorious, but when he was at his best.
Who of us doesn't?
Now, speaking of which, I heard that there was a time in the 90s when things were rough, where the very heavy Doink the Clown, Raw was just kind of madness era, when you and Hunter sat down Vince and were like, this product is the shits right now.
Yeah.
Is that really true?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't just me and Hunter. It was me and Hunter, Nash, and Beck Hall and Waltman. I mean, that's funny. That's like one. That's one of those infamous things that the Clique did that supposedly was in there, pulling a bunch of political weight. I mean, I suppose if that's what you want to call it, what we were in there doing is telling this is completely atrocious. You know what I mean? This is just it's horrible. I mean, and it wasn't long after that before Kevin and them decided to go to.
Did Vince listen? I mean,
he did. I mean, he did, but at the same time, it's like one of the things that and I know people don't understand is like if you see something you don't like, change it, and you do, but at the same time, there has to be a transition to that change. You can't just completely cut something off. You know what I mean? Again, I mean, you can you sit there and you cut off my ponytail, you're gonna know I got a haircut, and you're gonna go, dude, what'd you do with your hair? If I slowly clip it away over time, I mean, it's less noticeable and it's an easier transition. Mm-hmm. I mean, his point to all of that, excuse me, was one, there has to be transition time, and also, I mean, we were, I was talking about this today. I mean, getting things away from the old traditional way into what we felt should be a new direction in this business as a whole is a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? Again, you go back and you look at everything. We were unprofessional and trouble. Guys doing those same things now, they're cool and innovative. I mean, you rock Vince's boat now. You're the coolest guy in the world. I did it 20 years ago. Hall did it 20 years ago. Nash, Hunter and I, we were 15. We were just jerks and unprofessional to everybody then.
True or false, you used to like to wear hunting gear into the ring just because you knew it pissed Vince off?
Hunting gear, yes. Well, I mean, I didn't do it just to piss him off. I came back one time. I mean, this is not a rapid fire, but I came back one time. He's like, "What are you wearing? I mean, what are you going to wear tonight?" I said, "This," and he goes, "No." And I had on my camo jacket, my cowboy hat, and my jeans, and I said, "Yeah," and he goes, "No," and I said, "What?" He goes, "You're not wearing that." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And this was after he called me back early. I was out with knee surgery. He called me back early. I still need another 2 weeks to come back. And it was when Cena went down. Cena went down, and they called me back. And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Not the hat." I said, "Yeah, the hat." And he goes, "No." And unfortunately, it was just one of those things where unfortunately there were other people around. I said, "You call me back 2 weeks early?" I said, "And you're going to tell me what I'm wearing out there?" I said, "I can go get on a plane and go home and take my 2 weeks if you want." He goes, "We'll talk about it." And I said, "All right." And we talked afterwards, and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing busting my nuts in front of the boys about what I'm wearing?"
Last question for Shawn Michaels. I was there in Orlando when you had that classic with Ric Flair that I just think was... everyone talks about your matches with Taker, and they were fantastic. But the emotion that led up to that Flair retirement and what the role that you played in that, I just thought it was brilliant. And even the end to the match, the whole "I love you, I'm sorry," everything, I just thought was a beautiful end there. So number one, I want to ask that match means to you. And then lastly, do you ever think about all the things that I'm sure you learned from Rick, and at the same time, I'm sure, in a sense, you've ended your career in a way that's kind of been so much more pleasant and easier for you, and Rick is kind of still working right now, and I wonder how that makes you feel as a friend and someone who looks up to him.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the first question, I mean, that was huge for me. I mean, here I was, having what is certainly, and in my mind still is, his last match, and I watched him when I was 15, and he was my guy, and I'm getting, not only am I getting to have his last match, he picked me. Of all the guys in this line of work, he picked me to have it with. And the thing is, it was that and, my concept for the match, and especially the end, because it was a very real emotional thing for me because of all those things I just said. I mean, I can, again, I can be Mr., sort of, hard ass over here on one term. But, I mean, when it comes to my matches and the relationship I have with the guys in my matches, that emotion for me has to come out in one way or another. I like to think that's hopefully what distinguishes mine from everybody else's. But there was just too much real life emotion in the heart and body of Michael Shawn Hickenbottom that I could not let that come out in the match. So I woke up one night at like 2:00 in the morning, and I had it. It just came to me, and so I just started writing everything down. And then I'm sitting there and I'm writing down the ending, and I'm weeping. I'm crying on the paper, and I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, this is a wrestling match in front of millions. They're probably gonna think I'm like, oh, he's so gay. You know what I mean? I didn't know. But when I showed it to him, and I showed it to Michael Hayes, he looked at me, his eyes watered up, and he patted me on the knee and he said thank you. And that's when I knew, like, okay, this is, I don't care about anything else. I hope they like it. I hope this turns out, I hope this is as emotional to them as it is to us. But I made the decision at that point that I was gonna have this match with he and I. This is what we were doing. I don't care what anybody said. And I even told him, you don't say a word in this match. And he's like, well, I didn't know. And I said, you do not talk. I said, this is my, and he was, he did it one time. I yelled at him and started whacking him in the match. But I said, shut up.
Wow.
On the other side of that, with your other question, you know what? I know that Rick struggled with that decision. He called me a lot of times, about going back for TNA. And, I can't. I know his situation, and I know, and what? More importantly, I know, Rick's. As much as it may hurt me, Rick's, peace, contentment, joy, hinges on being inside that ring, and I can't take that away from him because I want him to have it somewhere. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I certainly whatever burden that may have to be to carry, I'd rather carry that one than the going, no, dude, you told me I was your last. You can't do it anymore. And heaven knows what could happen to him. You know what I mean? If he's happy and he's, making it.
And able to express himself and do, because he lives in that ring.
He does.
He does.
You know what I mean? And so I don't want to take that away from him. So I'm happy for him. Do I, as his friend, do I hope and pray that that he can find that stuff somewhere else? Yeah, I do. Of course I do. Because I want the best for him. But I don't. Again, it's another one of those things that it may be a little harder to do, but it's still the same situation where, I've done my best to, one, not try to make sense of the unsensible, and two, not try to control those things that I know are just completely out of my control.
Shawn Michaels, one of the greats of all time. It has been an honor and pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.